Howdy, howdy, everybody. This is Jared Sterrett, and you're listening to KZCC LP 106.1 Conroe and KZCW LP 104.5 in Conroe and worldwide at OurLoneStar.com.
Sherrod Collins and Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani. We are
Tony Lynn
Thompson Sherrod Collins. We are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we are here as a public service for you, our Texas listeners. And we have some listeners from Colorado, and I think we've got some people from New York that listen sometimes. But we're here to just talk about a variety of legal topics and hopefully somehow assist you. You know, we believe in serving the community and one another and somehow assist you in addressing or managing your legal challenges or legal situations.
And I'm going to throw out there that it's early voting has started, and Harris County had a record turnout, which I don't know what that means because they're a little bit more liberal than we are up here. But then Trump came yesterday, and all of my friends, I give a big shout out to all of my friends that went to the Trump rally and waited in line instead of having their wherever they do go to Tootsie's or wherever. they waited in line for the Trump rally. So and I know they had fun and they were screaming and hooting and hollering. But anyway, early voting today. Everybody get out and make sure you do your civic duty and you uphold the rights that you're given in the United States and vote. Very, very important, because I'm also going to talk a little bit today about annexation and your ability in Montgomery County to prevent being annexed, because we want to be a Tier 2 county, and we're not, but we can be if we get 10% of our voters to sign up on a petition. But that will be after we discuss the topic of the day, which is
trusts. We're going to talk about trust. We've talked about trust on this show before,
yes,
but we're going to do a little bit more in depth. I've got an interesting case. I found an interesting case about this guy who was violating the Texas Securities Act and defrauding the elderly of their retirements and annuities.
Did he
and all
know
of
them,
that.
or was he somebody that met them like on the internet or something?
He did seminars. This is in Head versus State. He did seminars for people, mainly targeting the elderly in hotels and conference
And when you say
rooms.
elderly, how old is that?
70 and above.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't consider myself elderly, although
no.
I
These
can
people
get
were
cheap,
quite elderly.
cheap prices at the movies.
Oh, you
now,
can?
Yes.
Okay.
Although my
Well-
husband cannot. I am elderly, he is not.
Okay,
Yes.
well, first let's talk about what a trust is. Okay, so Tony, tell our listeners what a trust is.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me define what trust is off the top of my head. because,
Yeah, but you can do it. I know you can.
I probably can't, even though I've done a lot of trust. And I will say this, just sort of in passing, I was sitting in County Court 2 the other day, waiting for my case to come up. And I don't know why I got there early, because you know that's not like me. I usually, I swoop in like 1 second before something starts and I get going. And so anyway, I was watching this really interesting case, and it was on a trust. And it was on, which my listeners, if you just have a little free time and rather than watch TV or listen or get on Facebook or whatever, go down to the courthouse and just listen to some hearings. It's open to the public. Anybody can watch. It is, unless you're a witness, of course, and you can't be in there, but maybe you've got a protective order or a restraining order. But whatever the case may be, go on and just watch. It is just really, really interesting. And so I was waiting for my case to be called, and I was listening to this case, and there were more attorneys in that courtroom than there were witnesses. And I learned that the courthouse, the annex, has cameras out in the hall now. And when you're in the courtroom, they show you. You can watch the people, the witnesses, and people kind of out in the hall. So, you know, maybe if they shouldn't be talking to somebody or whatever, but don't be doing it because everybody's watching you now. And it was the case was about a trust, though. And it was two siblings that were arguing over their elderly mother's estate, which I guess wasn't all that big, but became substantial after it was invested. And money, the love of money is the root of all evil. And I couldn't tell I couldn't tell who was in the right because everybody seemed so believable, but they were duking it out, and everybody.
The brother and sister?
And they were older. They were like probably in their 50s. And
What do you
they
mean,
wanted
duking
to
it
be
out?
the trustee of the mom's trust. And the brother was trying to get it away from the sister. But they were both, you know, I'm not
And they
gonna
were
say
both
elderly.
beneficiaries. So the mom was still living?
Well, I couldn't tell by because you know you're just kind of walking and then
Right.
you're listening like you walked into a show, like a Hallmark movie or something. That's kind
Right.
of what it comes down to. And you're watching these people on the stand, and everybody seems to be kind of believable until they start lying, and you can tell because it's just like the Kavanaugh hearings. It's like suddenly they're like not answering, or their answers don't make a lot
They're
of sense.
stuttering
they're-
or looking around a
or
lot,
they're
or-
not giving enough information for it to be legitimate. And so I'm just watching this going, wow, if I were a juror, which way would I go with it? And normally I don't get that benefit. Normally when I'm sitting in court, I'm the one that's performing. I'm the one that's having to do my job. And I don't get this kind of fun part to just watch and observe. And I learned a lot. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it was all women. All the attorneys were women. The experts were all guys. All the attorneys were women, and there was a lot of them. You know, and there was ad litem attorneys. There was an attorney for everybody. The witnesses had attorneys.
Yeah.
In a county court, it was like not even a district court. So it was kind of, you know, it was mind-boggling that there were so many people ready to go. And there was an expert witness on the stand, and he was a financier, and you know, the whole thing just played out like drama. What was interesting though was that the judge she said, she told two of the lead attorneys, she goes, by the way, while I was on my break, my clerks checked y'all out, and you are not, you have to take a guardianship course because you don't even have the authority under state law to be doing this case right now because you don't have your certificate.
So it must have been a guardian case.
Yes, it was-
So
yeah.
the mom must have been living.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm
they
saying.
wanted to
the
be
mom,
a guardian.
They were trying to be guardian of the state because mom's assets had increased, and these two.
Well,
And,
so what happened?
well, I just thought it was interesting that I was thinking, wow, everybody's doing so well, and everybody's dressed up, and this is great. Maybe that's what people think about me. I hope not, but I would be like, you know, just humiliated if the judge said in front of everybody, oh, and by the way, I think
You're not certified.
you're not certified, and you better. We're gonna take a break until tomorrow, and you have until tomorrow to get it done. Like maybe you can get it online. I think you can.
Well-
it's been a while since I've.
Yeah, I
I'm
did it.
currently certified. But
I
I
did
can't
it
remember
not
how.
too
It must
long
have
ago.
been. You know, it was a CLE. I got certified by
That's
just
why.
getting
That's
some-
why you can't do it quickly. You've got to get CLEs, or maybe they can find some through the
I
state
think you can
bar.
do it online. You can do almost all. It's amazing the things that you can do online now. For an example, I have a lot of clients that have tickets, and I was in.
No.
Not me. Even though I should get them, but thanks to you, somehow I have some connections now. But anyway, I was in the Harris County Precinct 4, Place 1, which is over there off Cypresswood. And that place was a zoo. There was so many people, you couldn't fit a sardine in there, not even. And it was because they had gotten flooded out over Harvey, and they just
Right.
moved back in from being off of Clayton Road or wherever, that place that's way over there out in the boondocks. And this is the craziest thing. All these people are in there, and they were dismissing cases right and left because there were so many people that had set their cases for jury trial. And they were like, oh, well, if you wait, if your officer didn't show up, although all the officers that subpoenaed are here, they were saying this, but right after that, they started dismissing everybody.
Really?
Yeah, and so then I was sort of like, oh my gosh, I should have waited a couple of hours to see if my guy showed up because it was a Friday afternoon and there weren't officers that were going to be there on a Friday afternoon for a jury trial. No way. For a case that had been reset for 2 years because of Harvey. And I ended up not taking the risk, and my guy had five tickets, because he just did everything wrong. He didn't have, everything was like, he didn't have a ticket. Everything he could have done without
Everything
really
was expired.
he was
and-
only like 10 miles over the speed limit, but he had a missing headlight, and just everything was wrong. And and all of his fines had accumulated, and he had missed court a few times, and so it was kind of a bad thing. But what they were doing was they were offering. They said one time only, which I don't know if that was really the case, but they were that busy at that particular precinct. One time only, and we'll give you a deferred. But the deferred is over today, and we'll give you a cut rate on what your fines were. And so my guy's fines were like, $2,000. And so the offer was, we'll dismiss everything today for like $300.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
but if you waited to make sure your officer wasn't there and like none of the officers were there,
Right.
then you flat out just got dismissed. And so I guess that's sort of, even though this is Montgomery County people, and so I can say this because that would never happen in Montgomery County.
No.
Even though I wish
no.
it would.
Yeah.
It would never
Me too.
happen.
Me too.
Before I go in there, I'm like forever. It's like I'm fighting for every little dogged thing I can get. But in this particular court, because of Harvey, they were dismissing a lot. It was right and left.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the definition of a trust.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to tell our listeners.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got
Okay,
off on a
if you
tangent.
come into funds some way, say like you get a settlement in court, or you just have a bunch of money. Your parents have accumulated a lot, or your family has accumulated a lot. You put that money in, it's basically an investment package with a trustee, which is often a bank or someone who knows about investing.
Yes.
You create a trust. It's just a legal document, basically. And all those assets, bank accounts, say you were in a car accident, you got $250,000. Well, you don't want to just put that in your bank and live off of it. You want to invest it. So
No,
you-
I would.
You would? Okay, well, maybe.
I
Tony,
would buy lotto tickets. That's what I'm doing today.
Would you really?
Yeah, I'd buy 250,000 of them. If it was at the billion, isn't it over $1 billion right now?
I don't know.
The
I
odds
don't
are
follow
really good if you
that.
buy that many.
Well, right. You could
And I'm
win.
not really materialistic. I would just want to see if I could win.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, say you didn't buy lotto tickets. Some of our listeners would want to invest that money so they could create what's called a trust. And a trust is just typically a professionally managed fund of money that say you open it with a bank, Chase Bank or something.
Doesn't have to be with the bank, though.
It doesn't have to be. You can name a person as your trustee, but whoever the trustee is manages those funds. And as the trustee of those funds, they have certain duties. We call them fiduciary duties, responsibilities. They've got to always act in the best interest of the beneficiary. So if I got a settlement, I was in a car accident, which God willing, that will never happen, but I was in a car accident, I got $250,000. I decided I wanted to open a trust with the funds. I'd go to the bank, as an attorney, I could create it myself. You can create it yourself too. You can download a form online, I think, and create a trust for yourself. And then I would put a bank in charge. That's what I would do, put some financial person in charge of managing those funds and
Charge
making them
them.
grow. Then that's right, they charge quite a bit of money.
And
As a matter of
that's what you would do?
fact,
I'd rather buy a lotto ticket.
would you? Well, I mean, as a matter of fact, sometimes they charge more than you even make on those things.
They are a disinterested third party in general. Not all the time, though. You can get involved.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of cases where big banks, when we're dealing with lots and lots of money, do the wrong thing because it's just political. Once again, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Well, I have a case here that we're going to talk about. We already talked a little bit about it, about a man who did just that. And what happens when you transfer securities investors and brokers and stuff, when they transfer funds to a certain account, a lot of times they get dividends, or not dividends, but benefits. They get bonuses. And so a lot of these people that manage financial assets, if they've got 50 clients and they talk their clients into all moving their funds from one investment to another, that
Talk them into
broker can get.
all you financial analysts out there that are listening to our show, she didn't mean that. You don't talk them into. You advise them properly of the.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Like place their money.
But securities investors
Best
get
return
in
for the money.
trouble a lot because they end up self-dealing.
And did you know?
Like you were just
I'm
saying.
sure you knew this, but I did not know this because I was just kind of blindly going to school and doing my thing. You don't have to have a degree to be a securities investor. You just have to
I know.
pass. And so all these people that are like UBS Payne Weber
Certified
and
and-
they're all dressed up and dealing with their money. They just took like their Series 7 and they took some tests and then you're letting them manage your money. Lotto.
Right. And a lot of lawsuits as a result of that. And also as a result of that, we've got some statutes that protect citizens from it. But anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about trust here on The Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl.
guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
Is there someone you know who is hooked on vintage aircraft? Follow the Commemorative Air Force and its fleet of World War II planes, including the mighty B-17 Flying Fortress Texas Raiders, which is based in Conroe, Texas. Texas Raiders tours locally and all around the United States, offering the public a chance to put their hands on aviation history. What could be a more perfect gift than a flight on a historic B-17? Taking to the sky on the iconic bomber is an experience that will never be forgotten. For the touring schedule, reservations, or more information, go to b17texasraiders.org or call 855-FLY-A-B-17.
A Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for summer internship opportunities, a Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to grab the mic and be on the air. A Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world all year round. Be an on-air personality, talk show producer, or YouTube, TV, podcast editor. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back to The Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today talking about trust. And what are some of the benefits of creating a trust? You know, we're talking about a trust. It's a structured thing where assets go into it. You've got a trustee who is the person that has legal title to the trust actually has legal title to the assets that are placed in it. The trustee is the person who manages those assets. And the beneficiary, there was another name for beneficiary. What was it? Certified something, is the one who directly benefits. Yeah, and they're certifiable.
I've been called that.
And they directly benefit from the assets in the trust that are created and dispersed. And, you know, you've got like the reasonably prudent investor standard where those assets have to be, you know, invested in like 20% blue chip, 30%.
You know, all that stuff just makes my eyes roll back in my head all about trust. What I'm thinking about when I see trust and I really get involved in a case and I'm asked to represent somebody, the word trust scares me to death. It's like, oh, it's that thing that I dealt with when I was a landman for like 30 years that people set up that I needed to go look into the Secretary of State and find out who, you know, how it was set up and not the Secretary of State, but I need to look in the land records and find out who was actually behind the trust. And it always ended up that the trust was actually the person that it was named for, and it was set up for just a vehicle to prevent somebody from getting to their assets. That's all it was. It was an entity, a legal entity by which somebody put their money so that it could be properly invested or they got some kind of tax haven out of it. But the most important thing that it did was it took the money out of a place where it could be hit if there was a judgment against them or somebody that wanted somebody's money, it got put there. For an example, the elderly. And that was the case that I just recently did where there was an elderly woman who she really, I mean, when I say elderly, I mean, I'm getting pretty close there now myself, but I know I'm not because you know
because you're not.
Because I'm not. But there's different. I don't want to kind of go off on a tangent here, but there's different degrees of elderly. There's the I want to say, who can we think of right now that is like just the ultimately hot woman, like the Cheryl Teagues, who just turned 70 elderly, which she is not elderly, not even now.
Right.
And then I'm just even trying to think of people that are in even their 40s and 50s.
Suzanne Summers. What about her? She's in her 70s.
Yeah, but you know what? She is starting to kind of look a little elderly to me with all of the Botox and the frozen
Recently.
face and all that stuff. It's just in the last
she looks
decade.
right,
But,
but
up
she's-
until she was about 65, hot.
Yeah,
Just like
gorgeous.
Sophia Loren, too, like really, really
Yes,
hot. And then there's some people that, but it's just that there's some breaking point where they turn from just really, really amazingly young looking until they're like 65 to they're getting ready to step into the crib. And I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's a mindset or what. But anyway, that being said, what happens is in real life, not, La La Land, that these people have accumulated a lot of money and they see themselves kind of getting closer to death because you can't take it with you.
Right.
And suddenly their relatives are looking at that corpus, are looking at the end of, hey, what, even though they
Not
love
their corpus, the corpus of the funds. is
yeah,
what
not the
she's talking about.
corpse, the corpus of the trust. And they're thinking, wow, maybe I need to be a
Be
little
nice
a little
to Grandpa.
undue influence here, maybe. And this happens very, very much. So
So
beware
much.
people that are loving to your mother. There's going to be some our aunts and uncles that don't have any kids, some niece or nephew that knows how this works is suddenly going to be living with them right next door, chumming up to them, undue influence, kissing up, so that they become the trustee and they get control of these funds through a trust or through a will, and they inherit your money. Now, you don't want to be greedy or anything because you can't take it with you and all that stuff, but
And you be the one taking care of your parents.
well,
or
wouldn't it be better
grandparents.
though if you were a little bit more charitable, and you're a little bit more godly, and you actually were helping the person and not trying to run them into the ground? And like, for an example, when somebody does get in a car wreck, somebody young and maybe they're mentally disabled or even physically disabled, somebody steps in and they become the trustee of your funds. Let's say it was you that was disabled.
Right.
Suddenly, somebody else has got your funds, and the person that the trust was for is not getting the benefit of the trust because of greed and those 7 deadly sins. That's what our topic is about today. It's about what happens to those assets when there's somebody that's doing the wrong thing, and that we're going to tell you how to protect yourself. And if you get in a situation where your money is in a trust that you no longer have control over, what you can do to get it back, to get control back of your money, out of your money. And so that kind of leads into our next question: revocable trust versus irrevocable trust.
Irrevocable trust. And the difference
Okay, tell us about
between the
that.
two of them. Well, living trusts are created in the person who creates its lifetime. That's called a living trust. And when that person dies, the trust becomes irrevocable. I get a lot of questions about, well, my dad's money is in a trust and my stepmom's going to get this, and when she dies, I'll get something. But she's not my real mom. And once my dad dies and the trust, she starts living off the trust funds, can she change the whole thing? Well, the answer is no, she can't, because when your father dies, in that example, that trust becomes irrevocable.
Okay, so here we have a listener question, and the question is, what is the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? And the answer is, I think you just answered it. A revocable trust is one that can be modified or revoked at any time. This type of trust normally becomes irrevocable when the trust maker dies. And an irrevocable trust cannot be changed. So then the next question is, what is a living trust and how do they work? And you kind of answered that too, but to kind of give the textbook answer, a living trust is a common type of trust used to transfer trust property to beneficiaries without probate. And that's kind of important because people get so scared of probate. I'm doing a bunch of probates right now. People, do not be afraid of probate. It's not that difficult. Many, many people do it on their own. If you go to the Harris County probate site, and even Montgomery County has a site for it, or you can go to the Texas Attorney General and you just Google it, it will tell you how you can probate your will. There's a lot of times wills can't be probated because something was wrong with them. But if you want to avoid that, then you set your and have some control over it, then you can set up a trust. Okay, now that being said, after you make a living trust, you transfer property into the trust. In other words, you have to set up the trust first, and you transfer property into the trust. Let's say it's that mega $1 billion that I'm going to win today.
And your loss. Oh,
Yeah.
and the lottery ticket you
Yeah,
got.
because I know
right.
I'm going to win, and when I do, I'm going to share with you. I
You're
promise.
so
And I'm so excited
can't
that I'm getting
wait.
ready to win.
Me too, Tony.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't want to get too involved in that right now because so many other people need our help right now. But when I do win, I'm going to set up a living trust. Okay, and then and so you transfer the property of your Mega Williams proceeds into the trust, and you become the trust trustee. So I'm going to have the TLC trust, right? A living trust is revocable, so you can change it during your lifetime. So if I change my mind and I'm going to give everything to Catholic Charities or the Charity of Christine, or more importantly, the charity of my, let's see, I don't know if I can see this, the charity of my beloved, handsome Dr. Collins, and here I'm showing a picture right now of
Was that college?
yes,
Look
he was a
at
cadet at A&M.
that.
He just looks so handsome. But really, this is what attracted me to him. I saw
He
this.
looks like Leave It to Beaver.
This is when he was 5, and this is when the same. Speaking of elections, this was November of 1968 when Nixon was elected,
see, Tony.
and he was all excited about it. He was like, "What's that guy that was in the ultra conservative kid in that show where the lady ended up being in real life homosexual?" Not Growing Pains. Remember, he was always And now
Facts of Lie.
no.
Michael J. Fox. Is
Yeah,
the guy,
yes, but
and Meredith Baxter.
Oh
is the
no,
woman.
station manager Dick, quick.
It was called.
What was the name of the show with Michael
Facts
J.
of
Fox?
Life. Wasn't
No,
it The
that was
Facts
the
of
one with
Life?
all the girls in it. No.
Oh, that's right.
No, come on. What was the show that he was in? Come on.
It was called. It was very popular.
It
for
was
a
very
long time.
popular.
So he. Family
Family
Ties.
Ties,
That's right.
thank
So he
you.
was like the Michael J. Fox.
Yes, see, you can tell by looking at this. He was probably very happy that Nixon had won in a landslide.
Oh,
Little did he
yeah.
know that things would be going down, the sliding downhill after that.
Yeah,
For that, Mr. Okay, so anyway, that being said, a living trust is revocable, and once we put the money in the Mega Millions, I can revoke it. But after I die, if I still have the revocable trust, the living trust in place, the trust becomes irrevocable because there's terms within that trust that says what's going to happen to that corpus. Okay, that's how you avoid the will. This a trust is a will avoidance, a probate avoidance entity. Okay, and so if you want to make sure that your family doesn't fight over your will or try to get it revoked or whatever, then you have control over it by putting it into a living trust, which you can also change, which is very important because we're
While
going to talk
you're
about
alive.
while you're alive. So you have a lot of control over it still. You don't get all the tax breaks when it's revocable, but you can protect your corpus of your Mega Millions because people can't get to it because it's a live entity on its own. Okay, and you file taxes on it, it has its own EIN.
That's right.
All right. So it's not as easy as what we're saying. Just go set your stuff up in trust. It has to be done legally. You normally will set up a bank account where the money will go into the trust, and the banks won't set up the account until you actually have a written trust document that tells where the money will go in the event of your death. So your trust document has to be done properly. So it's just not as easy as just kind of writing something out. Whereas a will, like we've had many shows on wills, a holographic will is one that you can just literally just put on the top of it. When I die, I want all my property to go to Station Manager Dick, which I'm sure he'd be very happy about.
And sign it and date it. You don't even really have to date it, but date it.
Although
Date
I'm not going to do that. Instead, all my property will go to my beloved cadet, Dr.
Leave
Collins.
It to Beaver, Michael J. Fox.
And if my daughter's listening, no, actually, it'll all go to you. And if my son's listening, it'll all go to you. Actually, I'm going to say right here, I don't have a will because when I die, I want to look down and watch everybody fight over my Mega Billion winnings. Okay.
Okay, I have to say this. I told Tony the other day that the standard rule is that at your funeral, only 6 people or less actually cry. And so we were just on the phone talking, and I said, isn't it sad that we spend all of our lives...
And you know why they're crying.
Trying to, no, I'm going to tell what you said.
Okay.
Don't tell it. And so I said, isn't it sad that we spend all of our lives trying to make these people happy, and then they're not even crying at our funeral? And Tony said, no. This is how you get them to cry at your funeral. You tell them they're going to inherit something
they're all
under your
there.
will, and then they're all there, and then disinherit all of them, and then they'll cry.
No, you have the reading of the will right there at the memorial.
funeral.
And when they sit down there, just like in the movies, like with the rich guy movies, and everybody's like,
can't
so it
believe
said all these wonderful things about you, and then it all goes to my favorite, Catholic Charities.
That's right. Okay, well, so that's a revocable trust.
Yeah, but here's the question.
Okay.
Is there any way to contest a trust?
Oh, yes.
Okay. How?
Well, you contest a trust with the ways that you contest it, that it was done under duress.
Just like a will.
Just like a will.
Yeah, you go to court. That's how you contest it.
Exactly.
Unless you want to work it out outside of court. But a trust contest could be successful if the trust maker was mentally incompetent when they made the trust,
Incapacity.
forced to enter it,
Duress.
unduly influenced to enter it, or deceived when setting up the trust. Those are all defenses. And there's many, many other defenses to that. But those are the big ones that where you can try to get rid of it. And that's after the person is, this assumes that it was irrevocable or you're already dead and you're having to look down, and jangle some chains and that kind of thing, which I don't have to do because I'll be in purgatory, sprinkling little Catholic dust on everybody and saying prayers. But purgatory lasts a long time, is my understanding.
Really?
And you know what? This is another thing I learned at church this weekend, which I don't know why I didn't know this before. Everybody, I knew this, everybody that dies, that ends up in heaven is a saint, okay? So heaven is filled with saints, okay?
Right.
But why do some saints get veneration days and feast days and they're special? Like, one of my favorite saints, Saint Sebastian, Saint Jude. I love all of those.
Isn't it because the Catholic Church decided that they were going to be a saint here?
Well,
And they would
no,
celebrate
because
them?
this is if a person dies and then after their death they still are creating miracles, then they
become that kind of saint.
then the Vatican kind of looks at it and they start working through it. So that's the hard part. In order to be a saint that gets recognized, and that's one of those things, those characteristics you should want when you go to heaven, like, still getting all the glory and all that stuff, when really there's only one person that gets the glory, or one entity, and that's God. And so I'm kind of wondering, isn't that sort of tainted to want to be venerated and, be discussed and have a feast
Well, maybe
day?
they don't want it. Maybe, it's just the people here decide that they're going to honor them. Those saints
Do you
don't
think
want
that
it.
priests and all these people actually become priests, all of them? I think because they're just doing it for for God's sake. I think for God's sake. I think it's because some of them want to be venerated.
Oh, sure.
And that's not holy. So I think they're still in purgatory. Speaking of, where I'll be for a while, because purgatory is
okay.
the place that you go before you're cleansed and
Right. And prayed out of it.
The good thing is
into
that you
heaven.
didn't go down.
Yeah.
You're just sort of in a neutral zone until a long time, because there's no time really when you get to purgatory. And people have to pray you out of purgatory,
know.
though, which is why I pray for everybody that died. And man, so many people are dying right now. It's exhausting. I spend more and more time in the chapel.
Well, you're very sweet. You must be a saint.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about irrevocable trust. Oh, okay. You know what? We're going to go to a break right now, and when we come back, we are going to continue our discussion on trust here on the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl.
Want to check out the fastest growing sport in the world? It's right here in Conroe, Texas, and it's roller derby. Conroe Roller Derby is a nonprofit recreational league of women and men who want you to come and check out the fast-paced, hard-hitting game of roller derby. The Conroe Cutthroats practice at Rainbow Roller Rink on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. You can find our game schedule and more information on our website, www.conroerollerderby.com.
Hey, Montgomery County and online listeners. Thank you so very much for checking out Jazzy Vibes with Soul. What? You haven't done so yet? Well, you've got to tune in. Hi, I am the host of Jazzy Vibes with Soul, Miss CeCe Holmes, and I invite you to check us out every Friday and Saturday from 7 until 9 p.m., where you will get the best in old school R&B, and of course, a little smooth jazz to make it jazzy. So tune in. That's right, tune in every Friday and Saturday right here on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM, or worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today talking about trust. And I just want you to know that you can check us out on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Legal Connection Show. And you can like us, you can follow us, you can
Trust us.
right, and listen live. And also, you can download the podcast. It's available on Wednesdays, early Wednesday mornings, because our show is always on Tuesday from 12 to 1 on 104.5 and 106.1. But on Wednesday mornings, you can get us on Google Play or iTunes. So we are here talking about trust. And Tony, I just want to talk for a second about irrevocable trust. You know, irrevocable, okay, so you got a living trust, becomes irrevocable upon death. Irrevocable sounds like, oh, that's the end of the story. There's nothing we can do. But I think you alluded to it. You started to talk about it a little bit in our last section, is that you can. There are defenses, or there are claims, undue influence, incapacity, all of that kind of
And
stuff.
that kind of goes to what's called an affirmative defense. It's when you're not denying something happened, but there is a defense for why it's still okay. And an affirmative defense would be statute of limitations. That's some stuff that I was working on the other day. And there's a gazillion affirmative defenses. But basically, we agree we breached that contract. We agree that the trust is I guess that's a bad example for trust. Affirmative defense. We agree that whatever happened, happened. However, you're too late. Statute of limitations. You didn't file in time to get any benefit or damages from that. So sorry, too bad, so sad. So that's
Self-defense is an affirmative defense.
right. You're saying it did happen,
Right.
but this is why
I was
it's okay.
defending myself.
This is why we're exonerated from it, or whatever the case may be. All right. And I'm going to throw in there that, because we were talking about living trusts are portrayed by financial planners as the ultimate estate planning tool and something everyone needs. The truth is, a living trust may not solve all your problems. So don't be sticking everything into a living trust thinking you're going to, not get hit with, that. This happens a lot. People trying to avoid, in divorce situation, trying to hide their money from their spouse, so they put their money in a trust so it can't be tapped, and they don't disclose it in discovery or whatever the case may be. But eventually there's going to be a paper trail, just like there always is if you dig deep enough. So don't be dishonest. And this goes right back to my Catholic doctrine, which reminds me, Beto O'Rourke is Catholic. He was an Irish Catholic.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but he's also pro-abortion. So that kind of gets me off on a whole other tangent. Okay. The truth is, a living trust may not solve all your problems, but maybe one piece of your estate planning toolbox. That's sort of the key word. To find out what's right for you, you need to ask your attorney or your financial planner, that one that didn't go to college, that has that Series 7 license that
With a nice
started
suit.
last week.
Right. or not. Some are fantastic.
They are.
But, I just want to say for our listeners, just in case this one little piece of information, we weren't clear about it. You take your assets, you own these, right? And you transfer ownership to the trust. So the reason that a family in a divorce situation, someone whose family's got a lot of money or whatever, there's this trust set up, is that the person who's trying to keep the spouse from getting the assets in the trust
Good example.
says, they're not mine. They're owned by the trust.
Yeah, here's the perfect example is Anna Nicole Smith. Anna Nicole Smith marries 89-year-old man. She's 26. She's a gold digger, a beautiful gold digger. He is getting ready to meet his maker, but hey, I'm going to slide in with my chocolate and my wine and this really hot girl, okay? This hot
Right.
stripper. And she marries him, but the son has seen this happen before.
Right.
And which reminds me, my beloved husband bought me a full-length sable coat, and it was owned by Howard Marshall's ex.
The one before Anna Nicole?
The pre Anna Nicole Smith.
Oh, okay.
And we ended up buying it because it was so beautiful.
Oh, I know, I've seen it.
Yes, it's gorgeous. I'll wear it one day up here with my little pillbox hat and all that stuff. And so anyway,
The Sun has seen this before.
the Sun had seen it happen before because Howard Marshall had bought this beautiful sable coat amongst other houses and all other kind of things for this woman, and so he put a stop to it. He's like, "Hey, Dad, love you to death, but you're like, in your 70s, and I've got my, master's or PhD or whatever." And I think all the Marshalls might be dead by now, but I'm unsure. One of the sons might still be alive, the estranged one. The one that didn't like Anna Nicole Smith, I think he's already dead. But anyway, he took all Dad's assets from all those billions of dollars, whatever he had from his oil company, and he put it into a trust. And so when the rich guy died, he duped Anna, because whose name really was Vicky Marshall. Her name wasn't really Anna. I don't know why she picked that, but it was a pretty name. She was duped because she didn't get anything. She didn't inherit anything because it was all in a trust. So the son moved all
legal
of Dad's
title
assets,
had been transferred.
and she couldn't get to it. So yes, she was the wife, but she inherited nothing. Same thing happened with the last case I just did. Bad brother, 3 brothers, all inheriting from mom, takes all the money, and he creates this trust right before she dies, and moves it so that nobody can inherit. So there's nothing to probate. However, we were able to get around that because not for fraud, not by undue influence, not by all the different affirmative defenses that, mental incapacity or all the things you could get around, but we actually went to the core of the trust itself. This elderly woman had never signed the trust. You have to have donative intent. The person that creates the trust has to sign off on the trust.
Right.
Without that person actually saying that they want to do it, whether you finagle into doing it or not, which he wasn't able to do, then your trust does not exist. So that's another way to make it so that the right thing happens. And the right thing may be that it needs to be a living trust. And I think in the situation with J. Howard Marshall, that probably was the right thing.
Right.
That Anna Nicole Smith didn't inherit because she did marry him for his money.
That's right. Well, Tony, it's like in Head v. State, I talked a little earlier about, there was this guy who, he was a broker. He sold trust and annuities, and his attorney created a fund managed by the attorney and represented to these elderly individuals that they were purchasing distressed assets. Distressed assets are things like bad loans or repossessed cars.
Not shabby
or-
chic.
Not shabby chic, that's right. And so what this man did...
Or your what I call your trophy wife, who you've not funded, that's a distressed asset if you're...
She's very distressed. Okay,
That's me on my
jury-
law school final, not doing well.
Were you just a distressed asset? Okay. Well, so at the trial court, and the appellate court affirmed this, a jury convicted him of misapplication of fiduciary property. Those were the annuities and assets that these elderly people
is very
gave him.
common.
And assessed punishment at 25 years confinement and a $10,000 fine. And they also convicted him of securities fraud and assessed punishment at 32 years
Now,
and a
where was this?
$10,000 fine. It was right here in Houston,
And when was that case?
2009.
And I guess that the feds got involved then, because in order to actually have time, it has to be a crime.
Right.
So there was a lot of money involved that they stepped into the picture. Wow.
There was a lot of, well,
How did it get found out? Do you know?
how did it get found out?
The people that wanted the money were like, "Hey, you've got my money," or
Yeah, there was one woman, I think her name was Head. No, not Head. McKellen. She had a trust, and
how old was she?
her 76, and her name was Theo, and her niece was named Broussard, and the niece was the beneficiary of the trust. That was a living trust created when Theo was living. Well, so Theo goes to the nursing home. I mean, it's just unbelievable how these people
Very,
cheat.
very common. When somebody goes in a nursing home and somebody else has got control of your money, at first you trust them. When we're going to get into that right now, who should I trust to be my trustee? But you trust them, and then all of a sudden, you got to pray the St. Michael prayer because some evil spirit's roaming and prowling around trying to ruin their soul, and then they turn into
Yeah.
a mass murderer. And
Well, Theo actually she was the trustee. So the defendant, the guy who went to prison and still in prison, I believe his first name was Robert, but it was Mr. Head, goes to the nursing home and gets her to sign over her annuities to him. So then all the money disappears, and her beneficiary, the one that the
you
trust
got to
was
be able to
created
trust
for.
your trustee, or have co-trustees, or have the bank be the trustee. But be very, very careful, because that is so common.
Well, so the beneficiary calls calls Mr. Head and says, "What happened to the money?" And he said, "Oh, I can't talk to you. I can only talk to Miss Thiel, who's now, in a nursing home." And so Broussard goes and gets an attorney to find out what happened and to the money. And the problem is, when they collected these annuities from these elderly people, there are penalties for cashing in. So you can have an annuity worth $5 million, and you pay $2.5 million to cash it in early. So Thiel actually paid $2.3 million in penalties to give Mr. Head.
That's not much compared to the billions I'm going to win tonight.
with lottery. So anyway, this guy went to prison for 50-something years, and it was right here in
That
Houston.
reminds me of another case that I did this summer. There was an ex-police chief of a small town in the Panhandle that I was working with, and his money was, and this was legitimate. He legitimately got married, and his wife was trying to take care of him in the nursing home, but his son, his actual blood son, wanted the money and sued and got an attorney to sue so that all the money that he had in this trust would go directly, would no longer go to would not go to the dad anymore. He was trying to say that the dad was incompetent. And the dad had physical impairments, but he wasn't mentally incompetent. And so the son froze up his dad's money for like 2 or 3 years, and he couldn't access it because this shifty attorney up in the Panhandle and all, in small courts a lot of times, particularly if you don't office around there, he had a lot of, they all knew each other. He was able to control these assets. So this guy had nothing. I mean, he couldn't go into his retirement because the son had asserted that his new wife was trying to rip him off, and they froze everything. So this guy had nothing, and it was just really sad. Nobody was even visiting. The son was just trying to get his money.
What did you do?
Ultimately, what happened was I stepped in, and they got an ad litem from the court, and the ad litem was reasonable. The ad litem, we got with the ad litem. We talked with them.
God.
We got witnesses. We went in there to show that he wasn't incompetent, because even though he had like MS, he was physically. It looked like by talking with him he wasn't all there. If you were to ask him legitimate questions, he was as sharp as a tack. Okay,
Right.
and so he ultimately said that he's not incompetent. There's nothing wrong with this relationship. That is his money. You need to release it. They still wouldn't release the proceeds to my client until I moved for a court order. When I finally when we finally won the case, basically saying he's not incompetent, it's his, the attorney put the money in the court registry and then wouldn't release it. And then when I filed a motion to get it out, he said, "I'll only release it if you withdraw your motion." I'm like, "No, I'm not withdrawing my motion. How am I going to get the money out of the registry?" So it was crazy, and we had to get the state bar had to get involved. But
no.
craziness, because love of money is the root of all evil. They tried to get this guy's money when it was secure. So you get it from all different angles. So the bottom line is, and here's my question for you: who should be my trustee for my trust? Who do you think?
I think your trustee needs to be someone with my personal opinion, someone you trust, but someone with some financial know-how, someone who understands clearly what your goals are and what you want.
When you tell me that, the first thing that comes to mind is the Divine Mercy Jesus. Jesus, I trust in you.
Yeah.
But he's not a person. I mean, he is a person, but he's not.
He would be the perfect trustee.
Yes, he would.
Because he's the ultimate fiduciary.
Most people name themselves as trustee. Why not have yourself as trustee so that they can manage the trust assets during their lifetime? You can choose anyone, even a corporation, as your trustee if you set one up if you prefer.
Right.
And lots of oil and gas people do that. They have trust. The trust is the trustee, and it just it's layered and layered and layered and layered, so that you can't get to it. But the bottom line is, you go to Secretary of State, you can eventually find out who the real person is, and it's just a big cycle. But legitimately, like Bill Gates, that's what you would do. And a lot of people that win the lotto, because I know I'm going to win the lotto, a lot of people do actually set up blind trusts so you can't see who the person is that's the trustee, and they'll have their attorney or somebody that they truly trust, like who is Batman's guy?
Robin?
No,
Alfred?
that was his friend. I wouldn't have Robin. Alfred, yeah, I would have him be my trustee. No, little Robin, he ran around in a little girly outfit. No,
Gee,
no.
Batman.
I would never have
Holy
Robin be my
camoly,
trustee.
Batman.
Yeah, because he was too silly. He needed like.
Oh, Robin was awesome.
So anyway, you will need to name a successor trustee who can step up to manage the trust after your death if you name yourself. Okay, very, very important. And the bank will not set up your trust unless you have that, because they know something like that may happen. And banks get sued all the time too. But they're protected in the if in doubt, go to the estates code, because there's lots and lots of very easy to read law that anybody can look at, and you don't need to be an attorney or rocket science, although you should get consultation for that. And I will add this too about the wills and estate, the trust code and the probate code. When I was in school, I made the highest grade in wills, trust, and probate. I thought it was so easy. I loved it. I thought it was the most interesting topic. And then they turned around after I was practicing other law, and they changed the entire code to the estates code. So when you go look at these cases now and you try to find case law that supports your proposition, which you know hasn't changed, you can't find it because they renumbered everything.
It's all statutes.
However, Harris County, and I think Montgomery County, and there's also, if you Google it, they have an estates code, probate code table that shows you what the code transferred to.
Oh,
so do
awesome.
that, and it's kind of a hassle, but I think they were trying to make it easier. But somebody went to a lot of trouble of completely reorganizing the probate code, which made me insane when I got back into it recently. But
Yeah.
I made it through. Okay, what property can go into a living trust?
Anything that you want transfer title ownership to.
Most of your property can be
But
placed
not
in living trusts,
insurance.
like you said.
Right, but not, right. There's a few things, like, is it insurance policies?
Life insurance policies and retirement accounts can't go in a trust, and that's kind of weird to me. You'd think they could.
Right.
But that's because insurance policies are also non-probate assets, and they
Right.
also show who will be the beneficiary when you die. So they're outside of a trust.
That's right.
And they would be conflicting if they went into the trust. And I've been watching so many of these shows again about people that, kill other people.
Forensic files and all that.
And they set up insurance policies.
Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? Fraudulent. Okay, well, listen, we are going to wrap it up here today. We appreciate you listening with us. Tony and Cheryl, we've been talking about trusts. You can email us your questions at questions@legalconnectionshow.com, and you can catch us here on 104.5 and 106.1 every Tuesday from 12 to 1. We'll see you guys next week, and we want to remind you
To serve God by serving others. And Jesus, we do trust in you. You're the best trustee.
that's true. Yes.